Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to Channels Beam on Channels Television. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, the onset and spread of COVID-19 have left few people, if any, unaffected. Governments the world over have been repeatedly tested and stretched. They have set new rules and norms to try to re-establish confidence and give economies a chance of survival. So today on the program, we will take a look at how small and medium enterprises have fared and the role they can or will play in revamping Nigeria's economy. However, before we get into that, let's see what made the trends in the past week in Nigeria's social cyberspace.
People around the world couldn't help but drop every other thing to celebrate Father's Day, a day set aside to honor fatherhood and paternal bonds, as well as the influence of fathers in society. Pictures with fathers from way back in the years were shared to relive memories of how fathers, like mothers, sacrificed so much to raise their sons and daughters.
Hi, I'm Dan Foster. That's right, the Nigerian African-American that just came back to Africa for the last, 9 years? I'm here. And ladies and gentlemen, it is about that time. Yes, the Dan Foster Show is now in existence. Can I get a hallelujah? Hallelujah!
It was, however, a different feeling when the death of veteran broadcaster Dan Foster was announced. Tweets relived how the captivating presentation of the Nigerian-based African-American changed their lives and inspired many to join the profession. He was also a judge on talent hunt shows such as West Africa Idol and Nigeria's Got Talent. Also, the death of Nigeria's beauty queen, Ibidun Ighodalo, sent shockwaves through the social cyberspace and beyond. Described as a loving and caring person, tweets wished her husband, Pastor Itwa Ighodalo, and children well as she was laid to rest.
Well, those were the trends in the past week. May the souls of those who passed on rest in peace. But moving forward, you can be a part of today's conversation from anywhere you are around the world. You can just tweet at us using the hashtags as well as the social media addresses showing on your screen at Channels TV, at ChannelsBeam, at Victor_MBIDI, the hashtag ChannelsBeam, as well as SMEs Survival. Now, joining us to look at today's topic, we have with us in the studio here in Lagos, Uchenna Nwankwo. He is a well-trained development economist who has worked in leading development organizations like the World Bank and the African Development Bank. He has also been involved in the coordination of senior-level governance dialogue across the continent and has helped countries in implementing activities that deepen their absorptive capacities to receive development resources. It's a pleasure to have you on the program today, Uchenna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthias.
Of course. We also have with us Atiku Samuel Oluwatobi. He is a development economist and a public finance management expert. He is an author and has also successfully managed core governance programs across various sectors. He is an alumni of the Harvard Kennedy School. His research focuses on economic changes during periods of economic crisis. Samuel, it's a pleasure to have you as well on the program today.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Kickstart this conversation for us, Samuel. How would you say SMEs have fared during this pandemic?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's clear to everybody. I mean, given the fact that we'll all understand that especially, of course, we have to look at it in three phases. The first one is before the lockdown, during the lockdown, then now. Before the lockdown, I will begin to, if you look at the economic numbers, you will discover most of, just to put it in context, most of small, medium enterprise in Nigeria actually play within the agriculture, the retail sector, and then more importantly, a little bit of work around, especially around transportation. Probably before the lockdown, there was slowdown in economic activity. And during the lockdown, of course, everything ground to a halt. And then Subsequently, after now, what we're saying is actually people just trying to get back to their feet, given the fact that we have very limited government intervention. So generally, overall, a lot of people have lost their job, their means of livelihood, profitability of most of this enterprise have actually gone down the drain. Just to put in context, the hotel industries, if you look
Yeah.
closely at the hotel industry, transportation industry, people moving interstate, virtually no activity in that space. So it's been terrible for people playing in that sector. I will say COVID-19 has actually impacted negatively. I mean, we've not seen this kind of thing before in the history
Some
of Nigeria.
Yeah, some would argue, however, that the government has actually been able to, or to at least to an extent, you know, coming and perhaps say, you know, rescue some of these SMEs.
Just for context, in Nigeria, we have about 41 million micro enterprise. Most of them actually don't even have bank accounts. They are not registered because of some complexity around the Nigerian system. Apparently, government intervention have not targeted those 41 million enterprise. Now there are about 71 million small, medium-scale enterprise in Nigeria. If you look closely at the intervention, about 50 billion. Of course, some have been able to tap into that, and that helped them one way or the other. But if you look at the biggest proportion of people in that sector, just to put in context, look at Lagos, close to Lagos there. People playing in pig industry, people having pigs. They've been ravaged by the swan flu, what you call it now, the swan flu pandemic that's actually ravaged and destroyed most of their businesses. And if you walk down to them and you ask them, what kind of intervention have you seen in the last 3-4 months? They will tell you absolutely nothing. Also
All right,
in Lagos,
yeah.
just to quickly add this also, most of the people operating poultry, small enterprise in Nigeria, actually suffered significant loss during the lockdown. They could not move their goods to market because of restrictions. How many government intervention has actually gone to actually help them get back to their feet? So, yes, some people actually got benefit, but not all. Majority have not been able to access any government intervention.
All right, Lloyd, I'll come back to you on that, but let's quickly get to hear from Uche, who is with us in the Lagos studio. So he was talking about, you know, government intervention, and I think he made mention of only one, which is 50 billion. I mean, can you just expatiate on that?
Yeah, you know, just like governments around the world, they're trying to be responsible and live up to their use, you know. So they are trying to create palliatives to help business cushion the effects of this pandemic. So the CBN announced 50 billion naira for small-scale enterprise and households. Yeah, why that is...
Is it enough, though?
It's not, of course. It's grossly inadequate. I mean, how many households, 50,000 households get a million naira, the 50 billion is gone. So, and we are looking at a population of over 180 million. And a larger percentage of the people in the country operates in the informal sector. So what you have largely is an economy made up of small-scale enterprise, guys by the road trying to survive, hand to mouth. So it's grossly inadequate.
So one of the things Samuel just made mention of the fact is that most of these people, like you said, they're by the side trying to make ends meet. They don't have bank accounts, and so it might be perhaps, you know, difficult for them to access these facilities. So how then do we get them thriving?
You see, our own case is a structural problem before the pandemic arrived. So we have a lot of problems. So it doesn't make it easier. So this is a dilemma, because even getting the palliatives down to the people that needed them is a problem because of the systems that are not existent. So putting this information out there, because already the 50 billion is not enough to cater for those that know that these funds are available that have bank accounts. So how do you now capture, if everybody comes for that money, there's no money for them. So the thing is, they have to first increase the facilities available, then create more awareness and tell people this is what you have to do. Hire agents, because this is the time to get people on board. It doesn't matter what they do, there needs to be consumption. Consumption has dropped. So even if you have to dig a hole, pay some people to dig it and pay some to fill it in the evening. Money needs to pass through hands. Yeah. So if you say, okay, people don't have bank accounts, you could hire agents, hire young guys who are unemployed. If you start 1,000 or 50,000, give them something. Let it take it upon themselves to go around and enlighten these guys, telling them this is what is available.
So talking about increasing the cushion now, so to speak, apart from the CBN, I mean, should we be looking outward, so to speak, maybe the African Development Bank or the World Bank or the Paris Club? I mean, all of this foreign. Have we seen any of such donations from outside?
Yeah, thank you, Matthias. Actually, we have been getting help from outside, but the problem is that this is a global pandemic. So every system also needs support. So what they can spare for you would not be when you were the only person in this crisis. So they can only spare what they can afford because they have to salvage their economies too. So the problem now comes to, because I'm aware that I think African Development Bank has sanctioned some amount for Nigeria, about 22 or 220 something million dollars. So we now come back to our own factor here. The judicious implementation, making sure that these funds get to
those who need it.
Yes, who need it. Because it's not enough, but if at least you are able to spread it and give it to the SMEs, then there's hope.
Might just work. Let me just go back quickly to Lloyd again, who is joining us via Skype from Abuja. Lloyd, we understand that, some of these European countries actually, as part of their palliatives, they gave as much as 15,000 euros to some of these SMEs. I mean, is that a likelihood in Nigeria, even though I know we are far more than, a lot of countries in Europe? But to what extent would you say that these monies will be spread or given to those who need them?
Yes, I mean, these economies are also facing what Nigeria is facing. If you look at the US, for instance, about 40 million people have lost their job. Of course, that's a priority going into the election year. If you look across Europe, also Eurozone, they're also facing almost similar things. So any money we get is actually okay for us. Of course, $1 million could actually go a long way in actually helping at least a little bit of businesses in Nigeria. But at the heart of it is that most of this money, when it comes in, is always channeled to government. So it's about the thinking. Of course, we know definitely government have been doing things. Of course, they've been consulting the business community. They've been talking to small-scale enterprise. And recently, if you look closely at the number, at the document that the President's Committee, I will call it the Committee on Economic, they actually came up with, it captures some of those feelings. And of course, they actually articulate that they need, at least at the minimum, they need about 2.3 trillion. To actually help reinflate the economy, at least to a particular degree. So if the European Union, the US, and all these, even the multilateral and then the bilateral organizations are actually donating, one way or the other, we're actually filling the box. For give or take, we will be needing close to about 10 trillion to actually help most of these businesses.
All right. So quickly, what then would you say is the way forward, just as we wind down?
Yes,
apart from the 10 trillion.
I think the first thing for us to do is actually to begin to address those systemic problems that led to this kind of problem we find ourselves, where palliative of government can now easily get to those people that need it. And those have to do with things like business registration. How do we actually fast-track business registration, ensuring that the 41 million micro enterprise in Nigeria are actually registered with address? I think that's one key thing we need to address going forward.
Basically, we should just have a database of all these small and medium enterprises we have in the country.
Certainly. I think that would go a long way in actually improving the kind of intervention that will be designed for them.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Samuel Atiku, for joining us and sharing your thoughts via Skype from Abuja, the nation's federal capital territory, of course. Just in wrapping up as well, what's the way forward quickly?
Yeah, because regardless of the amount that we get, what matters is how it is used. So it's just to appeal to the governance, those in charge. You can suspend our normal habit of misappropriating and spending on white elephant projects. Just channel the funds to those that truly need them. Then when this is over and the economy at least gets back to the former level, you can go back to your lifestyle if you want.
So you're permitting them to go back. Well, either way, thank you. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I would say thank you as well, Uche Nwankwo, for joining us on the program today and sharing your thoughts.
It's a pleasure.
Of course. We'll take a break and we'll be back in a moment with a different perspective. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're still are focusing on how SMEs are going to survive the post-pandemic. And of course, you can be part of the program from wherever you are around the world. Just tweet at us using the social media addresses on your screen as well as the hashtags. For joining us to look at another perspective, we have with us Ife Adebayo. He is an IT business analyst with experience in system analysis, software architecture, and IT project management. He develops programs and coordinates activities with various government agencies to support the growth of technology, encourage innovation, and provide an enabling environment for technology entrepreneurs and the tech startups to thrive. He is currently the acting special assistant to the Vice President on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Mr. Adebayo.
Thank you very much, Victor. It's my pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. The thing is, as it is now, we have about 70%, so to speak, now startups that have had to terminate full-time employee contracts since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. How do we get them back up again?
So, like you know, and I think, like has been mentioned by your former panelists, it is quite obvious that we're in a period that is unprecedented, at least in this generation. And the MSMEs are the lifeblood of the economy. So when you say people have lost jobs and companies are laying off people, a lot of them are MSMEs. And this is why there have been a couple of government interventions. For example, there's the 50 billion naira with NERSA, which I think was also mentioned, which was mentioned earlier, which a lot of MSMEs have actually applied for, and I know that a couple of them have started receiving messages to that effect to say their loan application is being processed. Also, there are a couple of other projects that the government is looking at. For example, the Vice President just submitted the Economic Sustainability Plan to the President for review and ratification. And when that is ratified, we're going to see a lot of further interventions that is supposed to support MSMEs and to support the growth of the economy. We're going to have things like payroll support to MSMEs, which helps those who are not able to pay salaries in this period to be able to pay salaries. And we're going to have a lot of other interventions to cushion the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, so the thing is, I mean, it's pretty much very clear that the way entrepreneurial business models and approaches were affected by the pandemic, it's going to have an impact on how entrepreneurship is perceived by many young, how would I put it now, people that are aspiring to be entrepreneurs as a job choice in the future. What would what do you think can be done to make them change their perception?
This is a very key topic for the government. This is something that the government takes very seriously, which is why we have interventions like specific sectoral interventions from the Bank of Industry, specific sectoral interventions from the Central Bank of Nigeria. For example, we have the CBN intervention for entrepreneurs in the technology and creative sectors, which enables them to be able to access between 3 million and 50 million naira based on the nature of their business, to be able to keep them afloat and to be able to continue to engage. We also have the recent reduction in cost of licensing from NAFDAC, which is also part of the government's plans to ensure that entrepreneurs are able to get their licenses without having to go deep into their pockets. The CAC, for example, over the last few years, as part of the efforts of the Ease of Doing Business Secretariat, has come up with a lot of reforms, and now you can register your company easily online and all those sorts of things. These are the things that are sort of the lifeblood of entrepreneurship and the lifeblood of MSMEs, and these are the things that the government is working very hard on.
Yeah. So one of the just to take you back to the previous panelists, one of the things that was raised is the fact that all of these interventions that you made mention of, the Bank of Industry, the central bank and NERSA as well, having access to these interventions has pretty much been a problem. How can we break down that barrier for SMEs and entrepreneurs and tech startups that are coming up?
I think it's twofold. I think the first is from the government side, we need to endeavor to communicate better. We need to endeavor to ensure that information is available. And we also need to ensure that this information availability is two-way. So when I apply for a government intervention, for example, I shouldn't have to wait for 2 weeks to get a response to say, oh, we've received your application. It doesn't have to be a response on the decision, but this is to say your application has been received and is being reviewed. And also periodically updating the applicants on the stage of the application. So that's one. However, also on the side of the MSMEs and on the side of the private sector, there needs to be an engagement also with the system to know what exists. Because what you find is that a lot of times there are government interventions, and after 2 years, you find that maybe it's only been implemented 10%, implemented 20%, because there's not much of an engagement from the private sector themselves. So I think the private sector, it has to be two ways. While the government must improve on its own part, the private sector must also show a bit more of an interest and willingness to engage with government.
Well, let's hope that happens as time goes on so that SMEs can actually bounce back and play their roles in trying to revamp Nigeria's economy. But I'd have to say thank you for joining us on the program today. Ife Adebayo, essay to the Vice President on Innovation and Entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much, Victor. It was my pleasure.
Of course, you're welcome. Well, that's where we are, but now we'll take a look at the movie videos on our YouTube channel in the past week.
The fist fight between members of the Kaduna State House of Assembly over the impeachment of the Deputy Speaker kicks off this week's most viewed videos in 5th place. It's followed by the disagreement of party stalwarts over the crisis in the Edo State chapter of the All Progressives Congress.
Don Pedro Obaseki is not a member of the APC family. So I wonder how he come to now understand the house in which he's not a resident or in which he does not have inhabit.
We are not a particularly docile people. But I think where the whole thing started was that the modus operandi of both the governor and the former governor, the Combre, were almost antithetical in the way they approach issues.
First Lady Aisha Muhammad.
3rd place sees spokesman of the wife of the president speaking about events that led to the shooting incident at the State House, Abuja.
If you ask about the state of the mind of the First Lady, I'm sure it is from the state of wanting to protect the president.
The resignation of Edo State Governor from the All Progressives Congress takes 2nd spot.
Decided to go and seek my gubernatorial aspiration on another platform.
While suspended chairman of the ruling APC revealing his next line of action after a court ruling that confirmed his suspension is first.
I will just thank their lordship for their judgment and look forward to my lawyers advising me on what should be the next line, if there should be another next line of action.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Do continue to keep staying safe by following all the guidelines given by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Thank you once again for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.